Aloha, my name is Ansel Clancy, internationally certified arborist and acting board member for the Maui Coffee Association. I'm here today to teach you about proper coffee pruning. There's two main reasons for this: coffee crop health and ultimately coffee cup quality. So there's a few different ways that you could prune your crop. Today, I'm going to teach you a method that here in Hawaii we call the Kona pruning method. But I want to describe a couple of other methods because depending on your crop and your intended farming style, you may want to consider one of these other methods. Look at these mature trees behind me. These are beautiful specimens. Now, if you were a mechanically harvested plantation, you might consider a curtain prune. And that's where you're going to come in and you're going to use a hedge trimmer and literally just clip off the tips of the branches and the top and create a hedge out of your line of coffee. And that's because your harvesting machine can drive right over the crop and it will brush all this ripe fruit right off. This is fantastic if you're mechanically harvested, but if you're not mechanically harvested, everywhere you cut a branch, you're going to get multiple little branches. And if you're trying to hand pick your coffee, you can see how I can reach in here. It gets a little thick and it's not best for hand-picked coffee. A second method that you could consider is called skeleton pruning. That's when you're going to come in, you're going to find this mature specimen once again, and you're going to actually take every branch all the way back close to the main leader or the central stalk, actually removing all of the leaves so the tree ends up looking like a skeleton, hence the name. Now, there are some advantages to this method. One of the nice things is you're removing all the foliage and all of the fruit as you're allowing the tree to regrow with some vigorous regrowth. This method could work if you're going to mechanically harvest or if you're going to hand harvest later. And the advantage to doing this is after you prune the tree, you're going to eliminate a vector for funguses and bacteria as well as pests. So you can eliminate all leaf and foliage, removing a host for pests and pathogens, and you're also going to remove all fruit. So you're removing a host for pests and pathogens that may hang out in your old fruit from the last season. Today, I want to talk to you about the Kona pruning method. And this is basically an open center type pruning method. I'm going to start with mature trees like these beautiful specimens behind me, and I'm going to take you through the process. Keep in mind, this is a 6-year training method, so I'm going to show you each one of those stages to get you on your way to growing some of the best coffee possible. So what we're going to start with is a mature tree. And step one is to come in after the harvest season and actually take that tree and stump it right at about knee height. Now, this can seem like a catastrophic move, but you need to trust that healthy plant and root system that you've been growing in your coffee crop. After you cut off this central leader, you're going to be removing the apical meristem, or the highest growth point on the tree. After you take off this apical meristem, the tree's going to create response growth, these little meristems. They are all going to compete to be the new dominant stem or the new apical meristem. What we're going to do is we're going to manipulate that growth so that they all stay about the same height, creating an open center type pruning. So ultimately, we're going to have a meristem here, one on this side, and one on the back. This is going to allow the plant to be open in the center. So keep in mind, step one is stumping. This stump right here has some nice regrowth coming up. So at this point, once I have some really nice response growth here, now I can consider training and selecting the regrowth that I'm going to keep for future growth. Keep in mind, the reason we're stumping like this is to get this nice, bright green growth. All right, take a look at this beautiful specimen. This tree right here is actually about 10 months out from its original stumping, and we have some beautiful response growth. Now it's time to take a look at our original stump, but it's also going to be time to select the response that's going to be the new cane growth for our open center pruning. If we take a look, you can see that 10-month-old stump there. And look how I have regrowth, response growth going on. So now it's time for me to select which ones I want to keep and which ones have to go. And then I'm going to keep it that way for a little while as I regrow these into nice, big, strong canes that eventually are going to be about hip height. So this one is one stem. That's perfect. This one right here, we have a couple stems coming off, and I like that. I'm going to keep that like that. We have another vertical here, but this one's growing inside and out of the bottom of the branch. So I'm actually going to just pop that right off and get rid of that. Okay, coming downhill here. This one's growing right underneath one of my other canes, so I actually don't want that. I'm actually going to pop that off. You can see it just comes right off at a cell wall division. So we'll get rid of that. Then as we come down here, I have 1, 2, 3, and I think that this is going to be number 4. So I'm actually going to look under here, take a look. This is the lowest one, and pop it right off. Of course, you're going to want to make sure you get rid of your plant material in a safe, sound, and conscientious fashion so that you're not spreading pests or pathogens around your farm or other farms. This tree right here is a fantastic specimen to continue our conversation in Kona method pruning. As you can see, this tree is a few years out from its original splits. This tree actually split naturally here, which created 2 regrowth points. Then it was tipped again right there, 2 more, and then it was tipped out here. So now I have 1, 2, 3, and 4 canes with this nice open center here. Look at this, a bird could fly through here. So that also means that you get airflow, reduced host for pests and pathogens. Now if we come up on the plant, look at this young, vigorous response growth. This is exactly what we're going for. And if we take a look in here, we have 1, 2, 3, and 4 stems. But what I want to show you in this section is, as this tree has come up, eventually all 4 of those stems were cut as well. This is an important cut. The first cut was the stump, then we did a training for regrowth. Then when we get the appropriate height, we're going to cut at hip height, and we're going to create what are called canes. Now these 4 mature stalks are called canes, and these that are growing off of them are called whips. So each tree is going to have 4 canes and 4 whips. Now we're going to let these come up. They're going to grow to maturity. They will not produce this year. They'll produce fruit next season. At the end of that season, I'm going to take my largest whip and I'm going to cut it back to the cane. I'm going to do that every year. When I cut a whip back, the following year it will not produce. This is going to limit the amount of fruit that each tree specimen will be able to produce. This increases the amount of nutrients per coffee seed. So what you're doing is you're limiting production and you're increasing quality. So at any given point, this will regrow. It will miss 1 year's production and will possibly produce the following year. Remember, I have 4 of these. So once I've come around for 4 years and cut each one of these, I will only have about 2 producing whips per tree any producing season, and I'll have 2 regrowing. This is mitigating the amount of fruit the tree's producing. It's also maximizing vigorous growth, keeping nice, young, fresh growth, and maximizing that airflow, minimizing pest and pathogen pressure. Okay, coffee growers, just to recap the Kona pruning method, I want you to keep in mind why you're pruning in the first place. This is crop quality and ultimately cup quality. We want to grow the best coffee in the world, and this is how we do it. So Kona pruning method, you're going to take a mature tree, and then I want you to take away from this video some bullet points. You're going to stump, train, cane, and maintain. That means you're going to cut it to knee height, you're going to train the regrowth, you're going to grow canes that are going to be cut to hip height, and then every year you're going to maintain. You're going to cut one of those canes back down to hip height, regrowing what's called a whip every season. You keep that going, you're going to have increased crop quality and you're going to have increased cup quality. That's the Kona pruning method.